be part of it. By becoming a member, you can contribute by uploading your own content and promoting your own news, events, or publications. Build Up will help you to reach a broader audience through our social media channels and newsletter. It is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled Leveraging Digitalization and Construction Skills, which is organized by Architects Council of Europe in the framework of European Sustainable Energy Week Extended Program. So I leave now the floor to Mariana Fernández, who will introduce the webinar. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Julia. It's truly a pleasure to work with you. First of all, I would like to thank Build Up for their support in this webinar organization, and of course the European Sustainable Energy Week to provide us this possibility to be able to present to you this interesting webinar today. As Julia mentioned, we will be addressing during 1 hour and a half this leveraging digitalization and construction skills towards 2030 energy goals. I will briefly go through the presentation. Sorry for that. The webinar notices before we start. Just keep in mind that this session is being recorded, so please make sure your microphones are muted. Obviously, we would like to keep this webinar as interactive as possible, so please use the chat to enter all your questions. Anyway, we will be launching polls during this session, and we certainly invite you all to participate with us today. So this last sentence is quite important. This is an interactive session, so don't hesitate to ask any questions or doubt you will have during the session. So let's go into it. This is the agenda for today's webinar. My name is Mariana Fernández. I'm Head of Operations at Sustainable Innovations, and today I will be the moderator of this webinar session. We will be having 3 main presentations, and between them we will be launching some polls to engage with you this conversation and to know what your ideas are in regards to the presentations of today. First of all, we will address how life clean energy transition is supporting the upskilling of building professionals. This presentation will be in charge of Amandine Lacourt from the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. Then we will move on to the mechanisms for matching the skills and the validation. This presentation will be by Irini Barbero. She is a research assistant at the School of Engineering at Cardiff University, and she will be presenting not only the project she's involved in, but many feedback from all projects involved today that are addressing this challenge of upskilling and digitalization. And finally, we will move on to the next presentation, name title Digitalization of Construction as Necessary Step Towards a Clean Energy Transition. It will be Paul McCormark, Innovation Manager at Belfast Metropolitan College, and RISE Coordinator in charge of this presentation. He will also gather feedback from other projects addressing this challenge. And of course, I insist, we would like to hear from you, so use the chat anytime you want to answer and pose your questions. We would like first with a question. We would like to hear from you. What are the main takeaways you expect for this session, to gather from this session? What do you expect? What are your expectations? You will then maybe have a different idea. So I certainly encourage you to use the chat now and start providing answers. What do you expect? What's your purpose joining this session? What do you think about leveraging digitalization and tools for this skills training? You can certainly answer those questions while we move on to our first presentation. As I was mentioning before, It will be our main participant, Amandine de Lacourt. She will be presenting how LifeSet is supporting skills in the building value chain. So, Amandine, thank you for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mariana. Good morning, everyone. Indeed, it's my pleasure to provide you a brief overview of the EU funding supporting the upskilling of building professionals. I work for CINEA, and this is a Brussels-based European agency that is supporting the European Commission in implementing the Green Deal. And we do this by managing a series of programs with an operational budget of close to 60 billion euros for the current period. What I will highlight in my presentation is really how these various funding programs can help develop innovations in the way we upskill building professionals along the whole value chain. Indeed, we know that a trained and qualified workforce is really a must if we want energy efficient building projects to become a reality. But we also know that it's not going to happen by itself without drastic interventions. And this is because the construction sector is facing many challenges, among others, the lack of attractivity for young talents, also the persistent skills shortages and mismatches, and also the lack of time from companies to really let their staff enroll in training, just to name a few. So what have we done against this background? So the Build Up Skills initiative was launched in 2011 as a Commission initiative to support exactly this process of upskilling building professionals. It has developed in 3 successive phases through different funding programs, as you can see here. In the first phase, we have funded national projects which had as main objective to map the skills gaps and to develop a strategic approach to address them. And this has led to the development of national platforms and national roadmaps in 30 countries. After this initial phase, we've supported projects that actually turn these roadmaps into action by developing national training and qualification schemes. Under the Horizon 2020 program, we have broadened a bit the scope by supporting also transnational actions, and not only for blue-collar professionals, but also for white-collar professions. Ongoing projects are mostly looking at boosting the demand for skills. Indeed, it's very essential that once professionals are equipped with new skills, they will actually be involved in energy efficient building projects. Now we are more than 10 years after the first roadmaps have been crafted, and it's actually time to update these strategies. And this is what we are supporting under the Life Clean Energy Transition Program, which is now the main vehicle to support this initiative. So until now, Build Up Skills has supported 77 projects. 13 are in the grant preparation phase, and if they are successfully concluded, they will start this autumn. And we have also organized 13 European exchange meetings where all these project teams can come together and exchange on common challenges and best practices. So what are the main expected results? Actually, since the start of this initiative, we've put the emphasis on not just funding one-off training action, because this has not a lot of impact over time, but instead what we want to support is really innovative mechanisms and approaches that can be then replicated throughout Europe. So this includes, as I said, national skills strategies, but also new or updated qualification frameworks and curricula, As well, an innovative training toolbox that can be deployed either on-site, in the classroom, or online, both for blue-collar workers, also white collars. Also the training of professionals, of course, at all levels of the European qualification framework, and the training of trainers, which is equally important. And here, as I said, we are only funding an initial pilot phase, and then this has to be replicated and scaled up through other funding streams. Also, the mechanisms to increase the recognition and the demand for skilled professionals, for example, linking skills with procurement, or campaigns towards building owners. And finally, we also feed into policy, notably the national long-term renovation strategies. We've recently issued a results pack with some project stories, which you can consult on the Cordis website. Now, of course, as I said, we are more than 10 years after the start of BUSLeague, and many things have changed. Indeed, the range of skills that is required from professionals has really increased rapidly, notably to embrace the move towards digital construction. Also the emergence of smart buildings with e-mobility, the industrialization of construction and renovation processes with prefabrication and off-site manufacturing playing a big part. Also the increased consideration of occupants and comfort aspects. And last but not least, also the shift towards a life cycle approach, not only looking at energy efficiency, but also more holistically at circularity and resource efficiency. So we need to take this into account, and this is what we have done in the first call of life clean energy transition last year. So we have opened a topic to reboot the national qualification and platforms, to update the status quo analysis and the national roadmaps, which were developed 10 years ago. As I said, we have a series of projects currently being finalized. If the grant preparation is successful, we will have projects developing these roadmaps in the countries that you can see listed here on this slide. And hopefully by mid of next year, we would have already interesting results, in particular as regard the status quo of the skills needs in those countries. So what's coming up for this year? I want to briefly present the call that is open. It has a deadline on the 16th of November. There's almost 100 million euro available for grants, and 18 topics are open. Obviously, I won't have time to present all of them. I will only focus on the one that is really relevant for today's discussion. Let me also highlight that in the Life Clean Energy Transition sub-program, we have a 95% co-funding rate, which is higher than in other parts of the LIFE program. Applications are to be submitted electronically through the EU funding and tenders portal. So we have, as I said, a topic entitled Build Up Skills, Strategies and Training Interventions Enabling a Decarbonized Building Stock. So this topic has two scopes. First of all, Scope A, rebooting the Build Up Skills national platforms and roadmaps. This is exactly intended to continue the work done in the first phase of the initiative. So here we invite national project teams to basically revitalize the national platforms that were created initially, gathering all the key national stakeholders, and then to update the status quo analysis and the national roadmap to reflect the new realities that I mentioned earlier. The indicative European contribution per project in this Scope A is 400,000 euros. Single country applications are expected, and in principle, one action per country. And proposals may be submitted by a single applicant from an eligible country, which is worth highlighting. So these are the some important points from the scope. Of course, applicants have to demonstrate a good knowledge of build-up skills, but there is no need to have been previously involved in prior projects. The work done should be supportive of the European Construction Blueprint, which is an initiative managed by DG GROW, the European Commission. There needs to be a broad coverage of all the relevant skills needed to enable the clean energy transition. We also expect that all professionals at all levels of the value chain will be addressed. And then, as I said, the key outputs are, yes, to relaunch the platform, to update the status quo analysis, and to update the national roadmaps with measure to 2030 and policy recommendations. And the roadmap is expected to be endorsed by relevant national stakeholders. In scope B of the same topic, we invite excellent proposals, upskilling or reskilling, developing upskilling and reskilling interventions for a decarbonized building stock. So here the objective is to upgrade existing training and qualification schemes or to develop new ones. The indicative European contribution per project here is €1 million. And here we do consider that applications by single applicant or covering a single country are not appropriate. We want to have a more European dimension. Therefore, the proposals should gather a minimum of 3 applicants from 3 different eligible countries. So what is worth highlighting as well is that the proposals are expected to cover one or several of the following focus areas. First of all, deep renovation, obviously, where we need a lot of skills development, nearly zero energy buildings, bridging to zero energy buildings, actually. Also, renewable energy source integration with efficient heating and cooling technologies, and also the deployment of heat pumps. As well, whole life carbon, circular construction, resource efficiency, and leveraging the levels framework. Obviously, digital skills, including building information modeling, and also building smartness, looking at the smart readiness indicator, but also building sensors, controls, and building management systems. So these are the areas where we expect proposals to focus on. Proposals can focus on just one of these focus areas. Obviously, applicants should choose between addressing scope A or scope B, so a proposal cannot address both scopes. If you would like more information, we invite you to consult our website, where we have a lot of information available. You can also consult the frequently asked questions on the Funding and Tenders portal. And if you do have specific questions, you may also write to our functional mailbox. I think with this, I finished my presentation. Of course, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Amandine. It was truly an interesting presentation. Thank you very much. Before we move ahead with the next presentation, we have a comment on the chat. Yes, the session will be shared afterwards with those who have to leave beforehand, or if you would like to watch the session again. And again, before we move on to the next presentation, we would like to launch our first poll question. If the technical team will be so kind to please send this poll question so we can answer. There you have it on the screen. What do you think will have the biggest impact on improving the energy performance of buildings? There you have several options. Maybe you consider that is only one of them. All the above. You have minimum energy performance standards mandated by law, or requirements for skilled professionals in procurement process. mandating the use of building information modeling, awareness campaigns toward investors and homeowners, all of the above. Of course, if you have anything to comment apart from this question, you can do it on the chat and we will try to address it as well. So I will certainly encourage you to vote. We will give a couple of seconds for you to have time enough to read this question and all the options for you to answer. And then after a couple of seconds, we will be having on the screen what the results are of your votes. If you have any doubt regarding this question or any comment that you would like to add, I insist you can use this chat option for you to clarify on your answer. Maybe you would like to provide more information on the answer you provided, so don't hesitate. I repeat again, the question is, what do you think will have the biggest impact on improving the energy performance of buildings? Let's give a couple of 5 seconds more so you can still vote, and then we will show on screen what the results of the votes have been. Okay, I think we can maybe go ahead with those results. Let's see what you voted. There you go. Many thanks for voting. We have very interesting answers. Most of you think all of the above. Maybe you can clarify why do you think all of the above on the chat so we can comment later. And there's also a huge vote for the first option regarding minimum energy performance standards mandated by law. But many people think as well requirements for skilled professionals are quite important. And those who have voted for mandating the use of building information modeling, maybe you will have different opinion when you see later on the next presentations we will be having today. And finally, the awareness campaigns are obviously also important for you. And let's discover why on the chat. I encourage you to explain us why did you vote for those options. Thank you very much for voting. So let's move ahead with the next presentation. Thank you, Amandine, again. Maybe we will back to you to answer some questions at the end of this webinar. Welcome, Irini. It's a pleasure to have you today with us. And for the rest of the people connected today, Irini will be in charge of presenting mechanisms for matching skills and their validation. The floor is yours, Irini.
Thank you very much, Mariana. A pleasure to be here, and thank you to everyone who is attending. So yes, I'm Irini Barbero, and I will be speaking about mechanisms for matching skills and the validation. I will be speaking on behalf of 6 European projects, of which I'm also part of, one of them. So you can see here, the points of contact for each project. And without any further ado, let's proceed with the first project, which is the BUSLeague project, and which is a 30-month long project. It's funded by the European Union's Horizon 2020 framework program, and it started in 2022. So the project focuses on 4 main elements. Firstly, mutual recognition of energy skills. Secondly, awareness raising. Thirdly, capacity building. And lastly, legislative changes. Since 2010, the project has recognized several challenges in the construction sector in order to deliver nZEB buildings and deep renovations. And some of them are the following. The first is testing and recognition of skills. The second one is awareness of both the general public, but also the workforce. The next one is lack of support and request for the skilled professionals by the public authorities. The fourth one is a lack of motivation, time and trainings. And lastly, the last challenge is the integration of new technologies and addressing new societal and technological trends. So you can see here on your slide in this visualization, aiming towards the 2050 NZEB target, the project employs kind of a push and pull, let's say, balanced strategy. So on one hand, in order to achieve and stimulate demand, you have to have a very modular recognition of energy skills, which are also interacting and affecting legislative changes and financing. On the other hand, in order to fill the stimulated demand and prove its effectiveness, you also have to have practical and effective upskilling, and which is connected to the recognition of energy skills. So the project is employing task-based units of learning outcomes, ULOs, which are statements regarding what a learner knows, understands, and is able to do, including responsibility, on a completion of a learning process, which are defined in terms of knowledge, skills, and responsibility. Now, how do these task-based ULOs work? You can see on your screen there's a new task form, and this consists of the title, for example, and then you have the different tasks and subtasks and descriptions of them, addressing all phases in construction and covering the whole value chain. Then, with regards to each subtask, you have the learning goals which are related to the subtask, and you can see some examples provided in the slide. But also, you have the specific competencies that are expected for performing the subtask, and also what skills does one need to be competent in that subtask, and what knowledge does one need to apply the skills for showing competence with regards to that specific subtask. So overall, the aim of the BUSLeague project is to address and overcome the challenges of the stimulation of demand for energy-skilled workforce. And if you would like to have more information, you can access the official website, but also the social media accounts. So now we will move into the next project, which is the BUSGoCircular project. Now, the BUSGoCircular project, again, is funded by the Horizon 2020 framework, and it started in September 2021. And the project understands the importance of a green energy workforce within the construction sector. It's a 30-month long project, and it is following the specific objectives that it has set, which is firstly to develop a circular construction skills qualification framework, secondly, stimulating market demand for circularity skills, then developing recognition schemes for and conducted pilot courses, then improving the reputation of the construction sector and attracting women and youth to circular skills professions, and lastly, expanding the BUSGoCircular at a national and European level by developing and implementing a communications and replication strategy. So in the visualization that you have on your screen, in order, let's say, to ride this renovation wave, there are several drivers which contribute to that. And you can see there is the energy transition, which addresses the just and green use of energy and its supply. Then the material transition, which really enables this circular framework. The climate transition, which addresses adequate solutions with regards to our climate challenges ahead. And obviously also the digital transition, which really affects the upskilling of both the supply and the demand. So the BUSGoCircular project addresses the material transition and that circular framework. And for example, one professional who will be willing to take into this challenge, let's say you can see here an example. 3 years ago, I started training, was inspired by other surfers to ride the renovation wave, and I trained my skills step by step on several topics, and then people recognized excellence on each skilled train. Again, to conclude and summarize, the overall aim of the project is to address and overcome the challenges, again, of the stimulation of demand for green energy skilled workforce. And you can find more information on the official website and the relevant social media accounts. Now we're moving on to our next project, which is the CraftEdu project. Again, Horizon 2020 funded project. And really, the idea here is setting up national qualification and training schemes for craftsmen in 4 countries and developing innovative qualification and training programs for craftsmen and construction workers in the energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy in buildings. So the project will set up a national qualification and training scheme for craftsmen in the Czech Republic, and then we'll develop also further training courses in Slovakia, Austria, and Bulgaria. Now, you can see here with regards to the training related goals, a kind of a development which leads to the development of the CraftEdu database, which we'll see in the next slide, and e-learning programs. So within the CraftEdu project, the following training courses have been developed. So 8 online training programs in the Czech Republic, 5 online training programs in Slovakia, 5 online training programs in Austria, and 5 online training programs in Bulgaria. And you can see here the link to the database, the platform, database.craftedu.eu. And really some results and expectations for the project is a full transformation into the digital, and increased outreach and flexibility, and also a platform which is ready for the future, which involves involvement of new teachers, new schools, and training centers. And of course, a higher sustainability of the results. For more information, you can visit the project website that you can find in the bottom right of your screen. Now we're moving on to our next project. The next project is the HP for All project.
Sorry to jump in. I think we are not seeing you properly on the camera. Your image is frozen. I don't know if you can switch off.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. The problem is, yes, with the camera.
I'm not sure what happened. Let's try again. Can you see me now?
No, it's black screen now.
Screen. I'll try turn off the camera, turning off and on again. What about now? I can see myself, but I don't know if you can see.
Unfortunately, not. Maybe you can go ahead and let's hope the camera
hope that
go back somehow.
might be a connection issue. Yes, thank you very much. So yes, I was about to introduce the HP for All project, and we'll be speaking about the increasing the demand for heat pump skills. So a little bit about the generals of the project. It's also a Horizon 2020 funded project, and it has as its objectives, first of all, the design of heat pumps competency and excellence skills framework. Secondly, an increase of the number of skilled workers. Thirdly, enable end users and clients to demand high quality solutions. And lastly, to replicate the project at a national and an EU level. So the project employs several mechanisms in order to achieve the goals. Mechanism number one is a scope database, which involves energy monitoring of heat pumps for scope and installer validation. Each installation requires an electrical meter and a heat meter to calculate scope of unit. Each plumber must show evidence of installations using scope of previous installations. And lastly, the higher the average of scope, the more competent the installed company. The next mechanism is building passwords, which involves a special physical/digital database that lists the retrofit measures and building information. It contains the building plans, the electrical plans, heating system plans, building fabric information, and information really of each building element. And this will also help with the retrofitting as the information for calculations are readily available. The next mechanism is the nZEB pass, which is similar to a health and safety requirements for site work, so Safe Pass. Workers are required here to complete nZEB fundamentals training, and also advanced passes can be issued when further nZEB training is completed. The next mechanism concerns lifelong validation, so a process for lifelong construction workers that do not have the requirements for grant applications to prove their expertise and be verified as a skilled worker, and a database of skilled workers in regions that can be accessed by end users. And also, mechanism number 5, a company and training center, in order to create links between construction companies and nZEB training centers. And training centers can provide low level of knowledge for general operatives or recently joined staff. And so this provides a pathway for people to diversify their career or even change careers. And to conclude the presentation, there is a quote by Henry Ford, who said that anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. And now we're moving on to our next project, which is the INSTRUCT project, of which I'm also part of. Again, it's a Horizon 2020 funded project. It started in 2020 and it's actually completing in a couple of months. So the INSTRUCT project recognizes the current situation of training in the construction sector and a quite fragmented landscape when it comes to the sector. You can see here several issues that emerge and barriers, which can also be summarized in the following current key barriers, which were also identified by sister projects and precedents such as build-up skills. So you have economic barriers, legal barriers, market barriers, and knowledge barriers. So the project's objectives is to, first of all, elicit quantitative and qualitative evidences that corroborate and reinforce the correlation between skills and education and energy performance and quality. Then the second one is to pave the way to a set of tools and instruments facilitating the mutual recognition of energy skills and qualifications in the construction sector. And the third one, which you can see also on your screen, the map here shows the 5 European clusters and the 8 demos that take place, real-world demos, which have as a goal really to test and to apply the usefulness and ease of use of the deployed instruments. Also, another objective is to deliver dissemination and awareness raising actions, but also to pave the way to new legislative frameworks. Now, our key results and value proposition really is a one-stop shop platform, which is the energy-education.com platform. You can see a screenshot on your right part of your screen, which is for training in the construction industry, and it's powered by blockchain technology. So the platform involves several services, for example, course certification of training providers, passports and registers, awareness raising for new legislative frameworks, promoting and disseminating initiatives for home and building owners, but also promoting new partnerships with producers and retailers. It's a trusted platform providing easy and structured access to adapted and up-to-date training. And also the INSTRUCT project, is important to say that is targeting the entire spectrum of the construction sector. And also on your right part of your screen, you can see an example of a mobile application which is powered by a blockchain technology in the database, in the platform. Now, it's also important to say that the project, in its attempt to understand and elicit gaps, skill gaps, is also relying on precedents such as the previous projects, such as the BMIT project, and it relies on natural language processing for skills identifications, to analyze, for example, professional Twitter accounts. And you can see here some of the tools that are used. The project also is using a participative approach for skills matching and validation. You can see the methodology on your right part of your screen, and it's in full compliance with the EQF. And also the goal really is to identify the skill gaps, training needs, and learning outcomes. Now, as mentioned previously, there's a reliance of blockchain for EU-wide skills recognition. The training labeling in blockchain can really enable users to monitor and control energy efficiency training with appropriate labeling, which is in accordance to regulations and standards. But also blockchain and IoT-based technology can really enable the education sector to transition seamlessly to full compliance with new labeling requirements. And you can see on your right part of your screen the actual architecture of the system powered by blockchain technology. Now, to conclude, some key insights. First of all, there's an understanding that skills and training needs a need to adapt to an evolving and dynamic landscape. There is a need to continuously update current skills, and also that there cannot be a size-fits-all approach. There needs to be a tailored training and adapted continuously to the needs of users. Now, some references of interest. And also you can find us on the official website and on our social media. And now let's proceed with the next and final project, which is the sEEtheSkills project. Again, the sEEtheSkills project is a Horizon 2020 funded project, and it started in 2021. It will be completed in 2024. It consists of 10 partners in 5 countries. And really, the overall objective is challenging market acceptance and acting towards stimulation of demand for energy skills in construction through a novel 3V called approach to support need for energy efficiency construction of new and renovation of existing building stock. And you can see this 3V approach in the diagram. So there's visibility, validation, and ultimately value. And you can see the details of this approach in the right part of your screen with the diagram. So really the concept is the creation of an integrated database of energy skills for matching, leveling, and mutual recognitions of skills. And also, as you can see here, the project creates steps really towards expressing the value of skills. And in the first phase, with regards to the validation of skill, you can see the specific steps that are being followed. Now, the specific work in order to reach the second objective, which is the validation of skills, will result with the creation and implementation of different tools that will facilitate leveling of skills and matching them towards predefined occupational standards. And you can see some of the specific project goals. Also, it's important to mention the context of defining procedure and minimum criteria for this mutual recognition, comparison, and leveling of skills. So the sEEtheSkills repository includes a very diverse data in content, format, size, but also in terms of scope that it covers. Also, it's important to say that these minimum requirements for mutual acceptance will be identified as a summary of things that skilled workers have to know, be able to do, or are competent to do. And lastly, the minimum conditions will be identified by linking the qualifications with national occupational standards and will be based on ULO's Units of Learning Outcomes database, which will be the basis for the integrated repository. Now, the results is a defined procedure for mutual recognition, comparison, and leveling of EE skills for professionals based on this achieved ULOs, and also defined procedure for comparison of different training courses and matching the resulting qualifications based on planned ULOs. And you can see here in the diagram this procedure of defining minimum criteria for mutual recognition, comparison, and leveling of EE skills of professionals. But also here you can see the proposed procedure for the evaluation of the training course for mutual recognition and matching of resulting qualifications. Now, to conclude, you can see here in the timeline, really the project started in 2021. We are now in 2022. So the part which is highlighted in green is currently happening. So these tools for matching and validations are currently being developed. So for more information, you can contact the project manager, of course, and visit the website and the official social media accounts. So from my part, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Once again, Irini Barbero, you can contact me for any inquiries at my email. But also I would like to reiterate here are the links to all the projects that I have just presented. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Irini. It was a pity not being able to see you on the screen finally.
I'm sorry.
It's problem of the camera, but nice presentation. It was really interesting to know what the different approaches of the different projects have been. So as Irini mentioned, please visit all those websites and don't hesitate to contact all those projects for more information if you are interested to know more of what's already included on the presentation today. Well, I have seen that you have asked some questions on the chat. I certainly invite you to stay with us until the end, until the Q&A session that we will have by the end of this presentation, this session today. Matthew Jones and Larissa Rosso asked about innovation, upskilling, and also renovation. We will certainly address those questions by the end of the session, so please be patient. We will answer those questions. The presenters will be asking those questions by the end of the session. Now we will be having a concrete question for you on the poll before we move ahead to the next presentation. And I will ask, please, for the technical team to launch the poll on the screen so the participants can answer those questions. There you have it on the screen. Now we would like to hear from you what your opinion is regarding which procedure for validating the skills of new employees do you find most reliable. For example, we have performing an entry test or exam, or even recommendations, list of finished projects, or why not personal portfolio, the documentation, including certificates. Maybe you have different ideas. I was mentioning in the previous poll question, you find these answers are not suitable for you. You can send us your opinion through the chat so we can know more what your views are in this regard. In this sense, if you agree with the proposed answers, you can certainly vote for one of them. I repeat the question: which procedure for validating the skills of new employees do you find most reliable? We have a first option, performing an entry test or exam, recommendations, list of finished projects as second option, and finally, personal portfolio documentation, including certificates. You have a couple of seconds for you to vote, and if you don't agree or need some clarification, you can send us through the chat and we will address it later during the Q&A session. Let's keep a couple of seconds more, and then we will show on the screen what the results are for this poll. I think we are almost ready, so let's find out what your decision has been. Let's launch the results for the poll. There you go. We have a winner there. It seems that personal portfolio documentation, including certificates, is the most voted option, but of course you find also interesting to perform an entry test or exam and the recommendations. Why is that? I certainly encourage you to clarify through the chat so we can further discuss on that. Thank you for voting, and now we will move ahead onto the next presentation. This presentation is by McCormark.
Hey, man, can I help you? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Paul,
thank you, Mariana.
Paul will be presenting digitalization of construction as a necessary step towards a clean energy transition. Thank you, Paul, for being today. The floor is yours.
Mariana, many thanks for the invitation, and good morning to everybody on the session. It is good morning because it's only 5 to 12 here. I'm speaking to you from Galway on the west of Ireland, the most western county in Europe, and I'd like to thank the Build Up Network for this presentation, for this opportunity, because it doesn't matter where you are in Europe. Some of the previous speakers talked about Amandine, Irini. We need to get a leveling up of skills to make sure we empower the construction sector to get the energy efficiencies into the system we require. Speaking on behalf today of our own project, which is Arise, nZEBready, Horea Petran, ProHeritage from Jared Wagenhofer, and TRAIN4SUSTAIN from Dr. Uli Kakob. Those are the four main projects we're speaking about today, but we're going to weave in all of the other projects we're involved in, because the network that Build Up Skills gives us is the opportunity to network and work with other projects, to learn from one another, and to bring the best possible skills and opportunities to you, the participants, and to industry. again, to make sure that we move forward within construction to reduce our energy footprint. But how do we use digitalization? How do we use that digital transformation as that necessary step to get the clean construction we require in Europe? There's a slight delay on the slides moving forward. Oh no, it's moved too fast. That's a bigger delay, so my apologies. So if we look at the agenda for today, if we can go back, if the host can do that, the agenda today, thank you, is digitalization of construction. The why, the what, the when, the who, and the where. Why we're doing it, what needs to be done, where has it to be done, who's going to take part, and who's going to deliver it, and where it needs. Then we'll talk about some of the obstacles that we have overcome in these 4 projects and in the wider projects. And as we said, we'll take examples from all of the projects we're involved in, all of the key projects there, and also draw on some of the stuff that Irini there talked about there, the blockchain and the leveling up and the learning outcomes. These are all pertinent across all of the digitalization of skills. We look at the innovation then and the steps moving forward, the benefits, and then the challenges. As we move then within the system and move to the next slide, the opportunity for digitalization in construction is massive. Why is, if we look at construction now, it's one of the biggest contributors to our CO2 footprint. The energy use in buildings is 17.5%. If we are to tackle climate change and to look at the climate crisis we're in and also the energy crisis, those twin pillars of crisis have combined to leave us now facing increased energy bills, increased fuel. We must tackle our efficiencies. That's the first step. And efficiencies in construction will come from skills, not come from products alone. You can have the best products in the world, but unless we have a skilled workforce that are comfortable and completely enabled to move that forward to deliver energy efficient buildings and evolve their work into a digitalization process. Next slide, please. The what? Digitalization is an imperative. As I've said at the start, energy efficiency is no longer a matter of why, but how. Look at the cost in financial terms alone of our energy crisis. Look at the rampant cost in environmental terms. If we're to tackle that 17.5% contribution to CO2, it has to come from skills. We must use all of the tools that we have and all of the opportunities that we have to get to that journey and get to the end goal. It is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but we must tackle the skills within the construction, not just the skills of new entrants, but the skills of those people already in it. There's a great quote there from Irini, and it was from Henry Ford. Education is a lifelong process for everybody. So how do we get there and look at that triple helix synergy model? We must tackle and work with public administration, with industry and society. Those 3 pillars must be tackled simultaneously because we need a progressive path of everybody working in cohesion and moving forward and making sure that that energy efficiency goal is there. Amandine at the start laid out all of the different strands that CINEA are doing and the EU funding opportunities are there. We can take full advantage of them and deliver all the pilots that we have and list all the projects that we have, but we must get them from pilot stage into mainstream. They must be scaled up. So it's not just pilots in certain parts of industry and certain parts geographically, but it's right across all of Europe. And we have that level playing field. Next slide, please. The when, digital skills and digital technology are the future of all of industry. Some industries have already adopted this a lot quicker. Construction is a laggard, it's quite slow to innovate, but it must continue in the journey now that's embarked on. The digitalization journey allows construction a vision and an opportunity to have a level playing field, but also a common language across all of construction. Regardless of geographical place, that common language is digitalization. It allows us to share information and share data to make informed decisions about our construction and to reduce that CO2 footprint. The 4 projects that we're highlighting today are moving in that journey. There are different stages of progress within their starting and closing times, but they're all looking to see how we get the skills from the classroom into the workforce and overcome that gap. How do we bring the skills to industry, in industry, and make sure we use digitalization as the learning process and the verification process? The poll that went up just before I started speaking there was, how do we look at that certification? Within the different projects, we're looking at a number of different options to give people individual learning accounts, ILAs, to give them a twin approach of certification and/or recognition. Within BIMCert and ARISE, we're looking at CPD points for those that wish to go down that route, or certification for those that want to build their unit of learning outcomes on their digital learning accounts. It's the same training mechanisms, the same upskilling, but it's giving the learner the choice. And that's where we need to use digitalization, because it gives greater choice, greater autonomy, and greater stimulation to the workforce than there. And it also gives that much needed visibility. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned, the third W, or the fourth W is who. Energy transitions in the construction sector are the workforce. It doesn't happen without a skilled workforce. We can have all fantastic opportunities in technology and in the implementation, but unless we have the skilled workforce that are fit to deliver and deliver to the highest efficiencies, we will never achieve the goals that we have. The biggest opportunity then is to bring digitalization to the workforce to stimulate and empower. We have built in the different projects a number of different learning interfaces of micro modules, segmented accreditation, the digital badges, and digitalized individual learning accounts to put the learner in charge of the process. Education to date has always been a maintenance mechanism. We now need to move from maintenance to a proactive delivery, and digitalization allows us to take that step. So the learner can choose the learning route they want. It's non-linear. They can choose the pathway they want, the modules they want, and build up the micro modules that they require to do their task better, smoother, and more efficiently. They also then can choose, as we said, that dual pathway of certification and/or recognition, because we need to tackle the vocational mobility within the sector, the vocational education training of those that are in work. Make lifelong learning an easier process to engage, to stimulate, and to reward, and to stay engaged. So therefore, all of the efficiencies we can describe and design on paper get translated through digitalization into the workforce, and then into the building site. Next slide, please. The where. As the ARISE methodology and the other projects, we'll use a structured blended accreditation. That's where we bring the learning to the learner and give them the upskilling they require in segmented approaches, non-linear learning, and ease of access, so that we build and deliver a work-life learning balance, so that all of the three work in harmony and none become an overload. That stimulates the learner to stay engaged and to remain engaged, and gives the rewards that they need to keep them on that journey. So we're going beyond traditional learning routes to make sure we stay engaged, remain engaged, and stay current, using digitalization to move ahead and move society, or move the construction sector ahead, so that we can get to there and need where we want to go. Next slide, please. Some of the obstacles that we in the different projects have encountered is that lack of access, how to keep people stimulated, and how to overcome the disconnect. There's always been different disconnections within learning, within upskilling. They now have become magnified because of different obstacles there within digitalization, because we have a gap between as planned, as designed, and as built. How do we close that disconnect? And that can be done through digitalization, because it allows us that process to deliver task-based learning, impact-based learning, and validate that learning by on the job. So we're closing that gap to go from a low productivity within innovation in construction to move up that productivity curve, to connect with both blue collar and no collar construction workers, to allow the construction sector to evolve, to bring that journey forward with digitalization as the fluid that is powering the engine of innovation within construction. Next slide, please. Some other obstacles as we connect with the learners, and especially the vocational plan, there is digital distance. Overcome the distance that people have there for digitalization by using simple mechanisms such as your handheld devices. Use that as the training mechanism. Everybody engages in this, but if you give them a computer, they suddenly become apprehensive. So how do we overcome that digital distance? By using tools that people are happy with, tools and intercepts that people are comfortable with. Digital information is the wavelength of construction. We've got to get everybody using that. As I said at the start, it becomes the common language across all of Europe within construction. Currently, the ability of the majority of the workforce, they lack that opportunity to engage. But by bringing it to their mobile phones and their handheld devices, we now engage with them at a time and a place that they're comfortable with, and an interface that they're comfortable with, and it removes the barriers of digital distance. And the 4 projects have demonstrated to date that digital literacy is the key to opening up the skills process and to keep the skills process as a continuum. Next slide, please. Connectivity is imperative, not just within the workforce, but internally and externally, to join up all of the dots across all of the construction supply chain, so that all the workers right across from design to construct to build to maintenance and the parts and the opportunities and everything else are all joined through that common language of digitalization. So therefore, by joining all the dots, we remove the gaps. We remove the gaps through lack of translation or lack of opportunity, and we magnify the energy savings at each stage. So therefore, communitatively, we're able to get the energy savings we require at the end by using it at each step. We're not just doing it at the start or the end, but digitalization allows us to look at that connectivity at every single step on our journey within construction, by delivering the skills, measuring the skills, make sure they're task-based learning, and coming out then at the end by being able to join that up. One of our key partners in Arise is IECE in North Macedonia, Diana Lacourt. And they're looking at qualifying the skills imperative for energy, which we have done, now bringing that to the next stage of quantifying, coming out with the algorithm that will exactly quantify the skills to energy saved, and allowing all of industry then to be able to quantify how the skills are delivering to their bottom line on energy savings, environmental savings, economic savings, and social benefit. That algorithm, when we get to that stage, will allow that window of opportunity to be shared right across all of construction. And it shows then how we augment the skills and the access to upskilling by recognizing the benefits there and maintaining the stimulation and connectivity with the workforce, because the skills is imperative. Skills is the key bit that we need to include. Next slide, please. Across the 4 different projects, skills innovation has been paramount to deliver an innovative skills delivery method, go beyond the boundaries, go beyond the classroom, deliver what we call beyond blended. We're now looking at the European Skills Register to target those groups and professionals that need the greater support to move forward. We have developed the unit of learning outcomes and the individual learning accounts, all digitalized. So therefore, we have learning accounts and transaction recognition backed up by blockchain, which has been developed in the RISE project with KEA in Copenhagen under Dr. James Hardy, to give that robustness the system needs. The matrix of skills are now mapped out across all of the different professionals, all of the different opportunities, both blue collar and no collar, so that we can get that gap closed, bringing the skills to the learner and giving them the choice. It's not a menu that they must follow every single step. It allows them to go through what I'd said earlier, a non-linear journey to pick the modules they need to do the job that they're doing, and it'll be task-based. Projects have also delivered a CEN workshop agreements, pre-mapping and incorporating the developed competence quality standards, including 67 of those mapped and analysed qualification schemes. We're also then looking within the project at the green public procurement, using the ESR platform to include and manage sustainable skills in the process using this tools and methodology. We're also measuring and quantifying the impacts of skills on the energy performance. As I said, we hope to get then to the end where we can quantify that by using an algorithm which will translate skills to CO2 savings. Excuse me. Projects also looking at the new market and regulatory models for skills demand, because we must go beyond the pilot stages of these projects are at to mainstream across all of the different countries in Europe and have that leveling up and that level playing field so that all of the countries then adopt these tools and opportunities. And how do we then use that to stimulate investments in high performance buildings, all looking to tackle that 17.5% CO2 contribution buildings currently have. The journey to net zero starts and ends with skills, to make sure we have the right skills and the right people, but we must bring innovation into construction at every step. Next, please. Next slide, please. That transition we've talked about is bringing construction into a new world. One of the digital tools is BIM, Building Information Modeling, and how BIM can translate across every stage from building, maintenance, design, operation and deconstruction, and reduce the CO2 footprint there. The UK government have introduced a mandate for the use of BIM in construction projects since 2016. We need to look at that, how that gets incorporated across all of Europe, how that BIM mapping, which is currently being done by a number of different partners across Europe, reflects that and gives each country a journey to a common destination, where digitalisation, using the digital tools in construction, is the ultimate destination for all of Europe. Within that common data environment, we then need to share those opportunities to allow the people, as we said, that common language of construction, so they turn data into informed decision making, into real CO2 savings, and using that journey across. Next slide, please. The skills exchange mechanism. If we look at the graph there, how many times have we looked at it ourselves in life? We will always take the shortest possible route to our destination. Digitalisation allows for that. Instead of going the long way around the right-hand corner, we're able then to work with the user and give a smoother user experience to maintain and stimulate the user, and to keep them on that lifelong journey, so that they do not become stale, they do not disengage. But by using that skills exchange mechanism to keep them stimulated, to keep them engaged, we use gamification in the projects, we use award points that they're able then to translate into cryptocurrency and CertCoin, they then can use to purchase their CPD points or their certification. And that approach is a circular economy approach on skills and utilization. It allows everybody to see the end goal and share in that end goal, so they know their journey, they know the start and finish point on that continual journey. That approach harnesses all of the market drivers from the demand side and matches them with impacts on the outcome side, and we're then able to tackle that CO2 footprint of the construction sector. It's not a one size fits all. There are many facets to it in the digital badges, digital modules, individual learning accounts, putting those all together. And the 4 projects and the other projects we're involved in through the BIM Energy Performance Alliance are all pioneering similar training schemes and powerful socioeconomic cross-section influencers to drive the sectors of education, industry and construction in partnership through dynamic models that continue and engage. Next slide, please. The digitalization skills exchange is a revolution in the skills, the learning process, going beyond the bricks and mortar of the classrooms, bringing it to the learner in their workplace. It's given a change in the face of delivery that learners are engaging in, that learners are comfortable with. It's overcoming the obstacles, it's bringing innovations to the learning. It is inspiring the demand for sustainable energy skills from companies and individuals working hand in hand, because it gives transparency and opportunity. We are changing the learning process by putting the learner in charge. No longer that long journey of 3 to 4 years. It's micro modules, micro accreditations, and letting them build the digital learning accounts they require for their jobs, for their vocational journey. Through gamification and skills benefit, the cryptocurrency of CertCoin, we're able then to engage with construction sector and let them embrace all of the digital transformation benefits, because we're breaking them down. It's not a massive journey, breaking them down into bite-sized learning, bite-sized exchanges, which keeps people on that journey. They're not becoming overpowered, but they're stimulated and engaged. Next slide. Within the digital mapping across the different projects, we have 92 different modules, online and in person, from BIMZ, BIMCert, BIMmeet, BIMImplement, and others. 88% of these use assessment, digital assessments, 12% use assessment with exams. So it allows choice, it allows modules, it allows people then to go down the route they require. The target groups for all of these, 60% white collar, 40% blue collar, and many change over. They also give that dual accreditation of qualifications and CPD credits. Delivery modes and durations designed to engage and stimulate. These modules are all online. They're available to the construction sector today for upskilling, but they're pilots. We need to move from the pilot stage to the mainstream stage. And that's what today's about, to build up, to give this seminar as part of Energy Week, how we reduce CO2 footprint in construction through skills. With these number of different projects and modules available now, how do we mainstream them as part of wider engagement, such as today, through information, sharing and opportunity? How we bring the learner through the process and sharing with all the different projects as we're doing today, given this presentation, part of Energy Week to show people that construction is serious about reducing the CO2 footprint and become greener as each step on their journey. Next slide, please. We've talked a number of times about how we're now looking at going beyond traditional learning. It's not just classroom-based, but it is task and impact-based learning. So you're getting the task to do the job you need in a bite-sized module, and the impact is measured. Digitalisation allows us to make that connectivity so that we can ensure that training and learning consistently evolve, but meet the needs of construction as construction moves into the modern age. Innovation at every step of the way, but digitalisation is the tool that gives that. Current learning methodologies don't allow us to predict or guarantee what the outcome will be, but digitalisation through task and impact-based learning give us that opportunity to measure the outcome. And that wide exposure allows the student to be greater involved, to use their knowledge efficiently and effectively, and to do their job better. Next slide, please. The skills pathway across all of the different projects allow a digitalisation of skills exchange. The learner can identify the journey, map the journey they require through the myriad of different courses because they only choose what they need. They're not choosing stuff they don't need to add on. It allows them to quantify the skills and allows them to look at the energy opportunities within their skills and build their own skills pathway, build their own skills opportunity, and get in that digital learning account that gives them vocational mobility. Within the projects, we're also then looking at how we build a centre of excellence in construction using digitalisation, DigiConnects, so those skills are brought and mainstreamed. The modules are mainstreamed so that people can engage, choose what they need, and they have a digital library of skills and learning they require. Next slide, please. The challenges for everybody, and it's not just the challenges for us designing the courses, the challenges for CINEA, or the challenges for EU, or the challenges for the learner, or the challenges for construction. These are all shared challenges. How do we get interactive discussion between policymakers, academics, educators, students and professionals and construction to encourage this new journey, to recognise the benefits of the hybrid journey between traditional and new learning and bring them to the benefit of the learner and the industry to reduce that CO2 footprint? How do we work with education and construction to influence them to contribute to climate neutrality? Look at that climate challenge, look at the energy challenge, and how skills are able to move that forward and tackle those head on. Quantify ourselves within the group here today. What does it take to bring everyone on board and accomplish the Green Deal together? I welcome that thoughts within the chat process there, as Mariana said earlier. It's a journey we're all on. It's not just the educator or the funder or the construction sector or the learner. It's everybody together with the policymakers. We've outlined what we've learned from past projects, what the students and professionals need to thrive, how we bring that in the digital transformation and make this journey accomplishable for all and achievable for all. Next slide, please. In conclusion, training is supported by digital platforms. That's been proven, the different pilots in the different projects. That platform now needs to be mainstream. Digital is the new normal. It allows us to tackle climate change through skills. That link has now been proven. We now need to broaden it, mainstream it, and bring it to the construction sector. It is central to every interaction. It's allowing us to measure, quantify, qualify, and support through blockchain the learner on their journey and give them the recognition and the support they require. Traditional education has always been in maintenance mode. As such, hasn't kept pace with technology. We need to change that as well as changing the interaction with construction and build that new pathway. Today's new techniques, all of those modules that we have there must be packaged and delivered in a proactive way so it not just engages the learner, but it engages industry and engages the public sector as well, so they all take benefit. Next slide, please. So folks, that's our conclusion. We're all on the journey from Arise, TRAIN4SUSTAIN, ProHeritage and nZEBready. We're all there moving forward in partnership through all of the other different projects that Amandine outlined earlier on, all the different processes. It's a journey moving through that to stimulate the learner. The end goal is green construction. The end goal is our climate challenge and our energy challenge. How do we tackle those two skills? The links are there for you folks to tackle and to look at any of the different projects. Give me a call. but it's cohesion. We all must move together in partnership to work with construction across all of Europe. No sense tackling CO2 in one country and not in the other. We must tackle the construction challenge across all of Europe and globally. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was a truly comprehensive presentation. And as Paul is inviting you, don't hesitate to check out this presentation. I would like to remind that the recording will be available afterwards in case you had to leave beforehand or if you would like to watch again the session. And now let's move to the final poll question we have today for you. And then we will go through your questions, the questions you left on the chat. So for the technical team, if you would like to share now, we have the final poll question for you. You have seen many information on Paul's presentation, and right now we would like to summarize and know your feedback in this question. For which professional group are digital skills most needed? Well, we have introduced 3 options here, but as I mentioned before, you have the option to clarify your option on the chat or provide a different answer if you are willing to. In this case, we have provided 3 different options. The first one is only for the management and project leading level employees. The second one is top management at white collars, those engineers, technicians, and finally, all involved in construction, including blue collars. Maybe you don't agree with the options we've provided, so don't hesitate to use the chat and provide your opinion over there. Or in case you agree, you can vote for one of the 3 options we are showing now on the screen. This is a very easy to answer question, so I'll repeat it again. For which professional groups are digital skills most needed? You can now vote for 5 more seconds, and then we will show on the screen what the results are for this poll question. Let's move ahead with the results. Let's see what your opinion has been in this sense. Well, it's quite clear that you consider that all involved in construction, including blue collars, are the professional group we should be addressing with these skills, construction and building. Well, thank you very much for voting in this poll. And now we will move ahead with the questions you've left on the chat. Right now, I invite all the speakers, all the panelists from today to switch on the cameras. Let's hope we don't have any trouble with the cameras. Nice, I can see you now all on the screen. And let's move with the first question we have on the chat. And let's see who prefers to answer that question. In this case, we received a question. It was, sorry, I'm just checking the chat. It was, the first one was by Larissa Daroso. She asked, what innovation is proposed for digitalization as skilling? Who would like to answer? Paul raised his hand, and then Irini, maybe you can answer both. First Paul, and then Irini. Please go ahead.
The question from Larissa asks about digitalization and the innovation. Innovation has to be at every step on the journey. Unless we join it up, innovation in design, innovation development, innovation in delivery of the skills. We've talked earlier here as a panel about how education is too static. And that stop-start doesn't allow for the learner to engage in the continuous lifelong journey they need. Because as technologies move, skills need to keep abreast. And innovation will allow people that engagement. Innovation in such as micro-module design, digital badging, allowing people the gamification engagement, letting people engage in learning through their mobile phone or their handheld without having to go into a classroom. So innovation must pervade every step on that journey. Without that, we will have gaps. Those gaps lead to failures, and those failures lead to reduced or increased energy content within construction. So innovation must be the end, must be the mechanism, but the end goal is to make sure we reduce the carbon footprint. And that innovation is not just in skills, but in measuring the carbon footprint, quantifying it at every step, and making sure we take every CO2 issue out of every stage of construction.
Thank you, Paul, for your answer. Before we move ahead with Irini, who was willing also to answer that question, please, you can continue asking questions through the chat. If we have time enough, we will try to answer today, but we only have 3 minutes left. We will give maybe a couple of minutes more. If there is a question that we are not able to answer today, we will certainly address it afterwards and provide you an answer to your question. So don't be nervous. We will address that and share together with this recording session. Please, Irini, go ahead with your answer.
Thank you. Now, just to build on what Paul was saying, which I think covered it very well, and I agree, and I think innovation is in every step, but also commenting on the topic of my presentation, was specifically digitalization when it comes to mechanisms for matching skills and their validation. I think there is this recognition that the field is very dynamic, and as previously mentioned, there cannot be a one-fits-all approach. And also there have been global recent events such as the COVID-19 pandemic, which has forced us to reconsider the very structures and possibilities of our education and training, and have perhaps even facilitated or hastened the transition. And really digital, for example, digital platforms and courses, as have been presented in several projects, are vital. And this when it comes not just to gathering and documenting information, but also sharing information, best practice sharing, and being a point of reference towards benchmarking for skills, for example, with learning outcomes or passports and register, and also be able to validate those skills with the construction value chain, but also similarly with Paul's presentation, tools like blockchain, which we have used in the INSTRUCT project, is really enabling and facilitating securing important qualities for educational platforms because of their aspects. So yes, I just wanted to add that. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you both. We have another question. You addressed several ways of skills and capacity building. We have a concrete question asking, do you have any examples of skilling projects for renovation that have already been scaled up or replicated in other member states?
Maybe I can start, and my colleague will complement. First, I would like to highlight that most of the projects we've funded have a renovation dimension. So they have been looking at skills that to some extent are pertinent to renovation projects. So I would invite you to look at the results pack I mentioned earlier. Replication is happening, yes, definitely, including through other projects. So for example, the Build Up Skills Netherlands team that we funded 10 years ago, they were very innovative in developing those task-based qualifications and based on units of learning outcomes that we mentioned. And this was then replicated by other project teams. Also in other cases, projects managed to have their results translated into official qualifications in the member states, which of course is very good, but takes a lot of time. So this was not happening in many cases. But then I could also link to, I think, another question by Oliver Young, who was asking whether all these projects have the magnitude to address the skills needs that we have. And there I would say not, because I think we have to be clear that the skills gap is such that what we do with Build Up Skills is only to address part of it. So what we do is really to pilot innovative training tools and methods, which then have to be replicated, but through other funding streams. So we really have to count on an industry and member states as well to take those results. I think there's really a lot out there that can be used, that is already tried and tested, but it needs to be scaled up. And just to give you an idea of the challenge, with the Horizon 2020 projects that we are funding, if they're all successful, they will directly train about 25,000 professionals. But when we did the analysis 10 years ago, we know that we need at least 3 million workers to be upskilled, and that was only for blue-collar workers. So this, I think, gives an idea of the challenge ahead, and that we need all stakeholders to join forces.
If I can come in there, part of the stuff that Amandine talked about there is to engage with all of the workforce. It's easier to engage with some than it is with others, but we must engage with all the workforce, and not just new build, but renovation. There's a tradition where blue collar workers will always continue on continual professionals development. How do we get, sorry, the white collar workers, how do we get the blue collar workers to do that? And that's by stimulating, given that reward mechanism of micro modules, so that it's not a long journey, it's short bite-sized journey. But we need all of the workforce in construction, whatever stage they're at, be it deliveries, maintenance, installation, building, construction, whatever, all to engage on that lifelong journey. Whereas currently we have a workforce that were trained and engaged maybe 10 years ago out in the field and haven't engaged in training the whole way. We all know that technology has moved immensely fast within 1 year, never mind 10 years. So how do we target them in a way that's efficient and effective and engages? And that's the challenge. And that's the challenge also for replicating. We're bringing forward new processes, new procedures that governments must adopt, that governments must recognize that it's not one or the other delivery mechanism, it has to be both. As we tackle the climate change, it is immense. As Amandine said there, we're looking at 25,000 workers in pilots. That needs to be multiplied up to millions. That doesn't happen without the backing of all the different governments, the different partners, to make sure that the process there is mapped out, smooth, and that people know to engage. It's not just with new build, it's with renovation and retrofit. If we look at the building stock of older buildings, antique, we need that retrofitting as well, because it's not just the new building stock, it's existing stock. So it has to convey right across all of construction and put the skills in place. How we recognize the skills, how we deliver the skills, because the workers have the opportunity to have the skills there, but how many of those workers have no recognition for the skills they currently have, especially in the blue collar worker end? So a number of the projects we talked about, it's not just about providing new skills, it's providing recognition for the skills they currently have. So that gives them that vocational mobility that they require. And that's some of the challenges we face in the construction sector, because it's never known to be leading and innovative. So the sector itself has to work with us. The skills, the people have to work with us, and industry. And we all do that, as I said here, especially through platforms just as Build Up here, where we work in cohesion. It's a challenge for us all, but the journey is there, the challenges are there, and how we share those challenges, how we share the innovation, and then reach a joint shared destination.
Thank you very much, Paul, for developing the answer. I'm afraid we have to go. We are 5 minutes ahead of the time we were supposed to be finalizing the webinar. I've seen that there are several questions still not answered. Please don't hesitate to write down a message to those projects that have been shown on the screen, all the websites shown on the screen. I would like to remind that this presentation and this recording will be shared afterwards, so you will have the contact details over there in case you would like to have more information or your questions asked directly, because I've seen that there's a heat pumps question specifically, and maybe you can address that to hpforall.eu. Over there you have the contact details, and if not, we will share with you this presentation and this recording when the session is over. Thank you very much, all the speaker and panelists today, for joining us. It was truly a pleasure, interesting presentation. hopefully the ones on the other side of the screen, you've enjoyed with us and learned quite a lot. And we really appreciate if you can send us your requests, comments, suggestions over the project's websites. Hopefully we see you soon again in the next webinars, and thank you all very much. See you in the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And many thanks to Build Upskills for hosting us and the technical people behind it who make us look good.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.